All right, looks like we are live on Facebook. Excellent. Hello, people coming in here on Facebook. I'm going to go ahead and launch the webinar. Let me just move this over a little bit more. There we go. We're going to go ahead and broadcast. All right, hello everyone. This is Maggie Ostara. I'm delighted that you are joining us today. And wow. I really appreciate you coming online today. A lot is going on in our world. And I know that we have a lot of different directions that we are being pulled in, a lot of different directions that we want to go in. And you may feel disrupted, you may feel inspired, you may feel confused, you may feel certain, probably you feel a lot of different things. I know that I do. And so in the midst of all of that, it's great for us to gather and to dive into some fundamentals that I think can help with your life in general, for sure, and particularly in a moment like this. So today in Sovereignty by Design, we're going to be focusing on your inner authority and decision making. And I know it doesn't sound particularly sexy. And yet, what is more vital than knowing how to make the right decisions for you? I've spoken to people a lot who are overwhelmed. They have too much information coming at them. They are uncertain about what to do. And this was true even before we had a pandemic and even before we had uprisings happening around the country and indeed around the world in the service of racial justice and against police brutality. And so, if anything, our lives have gotten more complex and in some ways more confusing, in other ways, dramatically more clear. And so, I want to offer this to you today to support you with whatever is going on for you. And then I also just want to say that to those of you who are coming on Zoom, to go ahead and say hi. And those of you who are watching on Facebook Live, there's a number of you also, just to go ahead. Why don't you just start out by saying, can you hear me? Can you just put yes in the chat? And put yes in the comments on Facebook Live if you can hear me and everything's coming through and the picture is clear and all of that. Okay, great, because that will help me see. Okay, yes. All right. And then if you can also just put in, also when you respond, make sure to pick all panelists and everyone, so everyone will be able to see your responses as well. And I'd love it if you would just say your name and where you're coming in from. And for today, if you could also just say what your human design type is, if you know what it is, because that'll also help me know a little bit about how to gear what it is that we're doing today. All right, great. So I want to say hi to Paige and Marshka and Sandra and Lee and Sherry and Megumi and Rachel and Barbara and Melissa. So so and there's definitely more of you there on Zoom that are saying hello. So yeah, don't be shy. Go ahead. Just pick all panelists and everyone, and that way everybody will. Yeah, see, most of you are writing to all panelists. There you go. Okay, great. Yay. Yeah, I love that we get international folks. I know Sherry's here from the UK and Marshka's here from Scotland. And we also have folks from Oakland and Missouri and Seattle. And we've got 2 reflectors on today. That's so awesome. All right, we're definitely going to have to talk about Reflectors Authority. All right. So Yeah, so keep coming in, and please do really feel free to make comments while I'm talking today. And if you have questions, it's a little easier to see them if they're in the Q&A, but you can also put them in the comments, and I'll come back through them as I go into the time for looking at those. I do want to make sure that we have plenty of time to talk today about authority. And I do want to let you know that next time, what I would like to do is to do some live one-on-one coaching with whoever of you would like to on your authority to help you make decisions, because I can model that for you. I can help you get in touch with your authority, depending on what your authority is. And I can also, like, if you're a reflector, I can't really help you get in touch with it, but I can certainly help you talk to you about it if you want. Okay. So I'd really like to open us up to some one-on-one coaching. In order to do that, you have to be willing to come on where people will see you. We might be able to just do voice, but and then also we have the recording, and so you're going to be recorded, and so people will hear you going into the future. So I just want to make sure that you are aware of those parameters, but I would really like to offer that, and I think it's going to help make our sessions together dynamic also. Okay. All right. Oh, it's Sherry from Los Angeles, not Sherry from Brighton. Okay. Hi, Sherry from Los Angeles. You're also a projector. I have a client, Sherry, who's in the UK, and she's also a projector. All right. Yeah, let's hear from a few more of you about what your type is, and where you're coming in from, if you can. Okay. We've got a lot of projectors. Um, it's awesome. Look at that. 1, 2, 3 projectors, and a couple of reflectors. Maybe the generators feel like they know what they need to know about their authority. I'm not sure. All right. Well, we'll see where we go with all of that. But let me just finish this little introduction, and then I'll dive into some content, and then we'll have plenty of time to do some interaction. So I started a couple of minutes ago saying that so many people are overwhelmed. And I think one of the things that's happening right now with the uprisings around racial justice and police brutality in the US, but in different parts of the world as well, a lot of it is for supporting what's happening here, um, is that, and especially if you're, well, no matter what your race is, but I'll just speak as a white person for a moment. I think especially if you're a white person and you're really, depending on where you are on the continuum of really knowing about white privilege, or knowing about racism, if it's really new to you, probably you're like, wow, where do I go to get more educated? What can I do to help raise my consciousness and help me to deepen my understanding so that I can really kind of open up this gap that I didn't even know was there. Um, and then depending on where you are, like for me, I mean, I did anti-racist work for many years, so this is not a new topic for me. Um, and even so, I'm still asking similar questions. It's like, okay, now is this time. Where do I put my attention? Where do I put my energy? How do I do this in alignment with my life? Because I need to keep my life going also. And what do I need to do to contribute and to participate in the best way for me? So I have a lot of new questions also, new decisions that I need to make. So wherever you are in that continuum, you probably have a lot of things that have kind of come up for you, and you need to be making those decisions. And so your inner authority can really super help you with that. And one thing I want to say, I mentioned this in my newsletter. I know a lot of you get my newsletter, um, but yesterday was about this paradox, okay, that I think many of us who are spiritually oriented are in right now, and certainly human design is in this, which on the one hand, human design teaches that we each have our own inner authority. We each have our own access to our inner being, if you will, or our soul self, or to super consciousness, however you want to think about it, if it's your higher self or it's your guardian angel or but this more expanded, wiser, uh, um, higher frequency aspect of who we are. Our authority helps us connect with that part in order to make decisions. Now, that's absolutely the case. And we're also impacted by our conditioning. And so if, all of us have grown up in a racist society, because pretty much most of the world is racist. And so we've grown up with racism as being a part of, just kind of the air that we breathe. Okay. And it's, as Angela Davis said in an interview I heard from her the other day, heteronormative patriarchal white supremacy, right? It's like all of it. We've grown up with that as kind of the dominant narrative. And if we're really heavily impacted by that, it's gonna influence our inner authority in the sense that we always have to ask the right questions, because our inner authority is not the same part of us. Like if you have a lot of intuition in your chart, for example, I have a lot of intuition in my chart, and I receive direct downloads through super consciousness through the 61. Okay. Um, that's different than my inner authority, which is my sacral, which is going to answer yes, no questions for me. So with the authority, it's for generators, it's we're answering yes, no questions. For projectors, we're talking it through. From some of us are intuitive through the spleen, and so we're getting intuition from the spleen, but that's often colored with fear. And then we also have manifestors who can have the ego, and they can be influenced by that. And then we have reflectors that are tuning in to the health of the collective, right? Or it's actually really the health of the community, the ones that they're around. But they also are more uh, um, tapped into potentially the health of the whole collective as well. So whatever it is, we're not necessarily getting all the guidance that we need. What we're getting is more of a mm, mm, mm. Or we're relying on the kind of conversations we're having as projectors, or we're relying on our ability to tune in for reflectors, or we're relying on our ability to as we receive our intuition, to be able to sort out our intuition from our conditioning. Okay, so I'm going to go into that a little bit more, but this is a place where I really see the fundamentals of human design intersecting with conditioning, which is, of course, what we've all been subject to under heteronormative patriarchal white supremacy. Now, for people who are people of color, right now we're really focusing on Black Americans. But for people of color, they're going to have a different experience depending on their communities, where they grew up, what their families were like, and so on, of that dominant narrative than what we have as white people. And again, all of us as white people have different versions, right? So what I just want to say is we have to take into account our personal histories and our own conditioning, and that our inner authority can help us do that if we know how to have the right questions to ask, and if we know how to have the helpful conversations. Okay, so let's just take that in for a second. I'm going to take a sip of water. Okay, because your inner authority is not the same thing as like my solar angel and I have conversations on a regular basis, and I get guidance that way. It's not the same as my inner authority. Okay, let's go through this, and then we'll unpack it together. Okay. Need to share my screen here. All right. So today we're talking about your inner authority and making decisions. And everyone has a specific authority, which is how you're designed to make decisions in concert with your inner being. Your authority is one of your superpowers. When you practice using your authority, everything in your life becomes easier, less stressful, more satisfying, and more prosperous. Now, what I do want to say is your inner authority is only one of many superpowers that you have. And I was just talking about intuition a minute ago, a type of intuition that I have. There's a number of different types of intuition in the human design chart. And so all of you have access to that, whether you have it defined in your chart or not. And it's different than your authority. Okay. Okay. So types of authority. There's the sacral, which is for generators and manifesting generators. There's the spleen. Let me just go through these quickly and then I have visuals for that. So there's the sacral, spleen, ego, self-projected, mental projected, and lunar. And then there's also emotional, and 50% of all types, except for reflectors, have emotional. And they say it's emotional authority. I think it's a little confusing, and I'll unpack that a little bit when we get there. Okay. So sacral authority comes if you are a generator, which means that you have your sacral colored in, that red square down at the bottom of your chart. That is your sacral. It's having it colored in is what makes you a generator, whether you're a pure generator or a manifesting generator. And your authority is going to come from the response. So generators are designed to respond. Whether you're a pure generator or a manifesting generator, you're still designed to respond. We talked about strategy last week. So we went through this last week. And so we're designed to respond, and we make decisions in our response by using our authority. And the sacral is kind of, it's very primal, and it's, if you think of it, it's down in the hara or the womb space, if you have a womb space, and it's not, it's far away from the throat, right? And it just goes, uh-huh, uh-huh, or uh-uh, uh-huh, or uh-uh. Mine has started to get to be like, sometimes it doesn't even talk. I just feel it in my body. It's just a, and yeah, well, that's what I want to say about that. A lot of times people have challenges connecting with their sacral authority because they're so conditioned to make decisions in their head. All of us have been really super conditioned to make decisions in our head. And what can happen is that your head is so full of information, and your head actually isn't designed to make decisions. The head in human design itself is designed for inspiration, for possibilities, for potentialities. And then the ajna, which is different in human design than it is in the Indian chakra system, the ajna, which is the lower part here, is designed for data storage, analysis, strategy, and data collection. But it's not designed to make decisions. And we get confused by that because we think that ajna, those ajna functions that we were just talking about, are how we make decisions. But what it doesn't tell us is it doesn't tell us if we have the energy for that, whatever the endeavor is that we're thinking about. And it also doesn't tell us if it's the right time. I mean, for years, this is exactly what I did for many, many years, because I have a pretty strong strategic mind. And I would gather data, I would analyze data, I would look at my calendar, I would make a strategic plan, and then I would move forward with it. And what I found is that, first of all, sometimes it felt like I was running uphill. And then other times I would start out with some good energy and then I would completely lose my energy. Or on the other times I realized this was really not the right time. It wasn't the right time for me in my life, or it wasn't the right time in the collective. So that there wasn't receptivity for it. Like if I was launching a program or something like that. And I just had the determination to make things happen because that was my MO for many, many years until I've discovered human design. And learning to actually not initiate, but respond, like we talked about last time. But as a generator, I'm a pure generator. And then learning how to ask my sacral and to live by what my sacral says, even if it doesn't agree with my head. I did some sacral sessions with some clients in the Messaging Made Easy with Human Design course that I taught last fall and winter, because they were really, a lot of my students were really challenged with being able to get in touch with their sacral. And so I did these sessions with them, helping them get in touch with their sacral. And one of the clearest demonstrations that I saw of how this works was with a woman who's actually quite embodied. I mean, she's done a lot of somatic practices. She teaches dance. She is a Ayurvedic practitioner, but she's also quite intellectual and in her head. And at first, when I started asking her these yes, no sacral questions, she would be like, uh-huh, but then there's, and I'd be like, no, it's not there's no qualification. And then she'd be like, mm-mm, but don't forget. And I'm like, no, it's just uh-huh or uh-uh. That's all it is. If you start getting any other information, it's coming from your head. It's not coming from your sacral. And so at the end of it, she did get so that she could work with it. And what she shared was is that even though she could really kind of feel it in her body, she kept, her mind was going nonstop, qualifying her responses the entire time. And so she got a visceral experience of the difference between what's going on in her mind, and what her authority was telling her. And a lot of times they weren't saying the same thing. And so I said, well, isn't that interesting? Good thing for you to practice, right? So it's best when you're first learning how to use your sacral authority to do it, have somebody else help you with it. There is a bit of an art to it, and it is something that I do with clients. And this is something I will do next week when I said I'll do the live session with, whoever's here who's a generator. And so it is good to have somebody help you with it, because it's not quite as straightforward as you might think it is. And that's why I would love to be able to do a demonstration with you. But over time, you can get a sense of it, and you can ask yourself questions, or you can be in contact with your inner being or with your guide about it, and ask questions there. And it, I mean, I've gotten to the point now where I feel pretty confident, where I can ask questions and I'll get mm-hmm, mm-hmm, or mm-mm. But if it's something important, then I often will kind of, I'll either ask a few times or ask somebody else to ask me with it. Or the other thing is to really look at what's showing up in my outer reality that is reinforcing the yes that I got or the no that I got. Because sometimes we can fool ourselves about what's going on in here. So, and since as a generator, and all generators, pure generators and manifesting generators, we're designed to dance with our outer reality, it's good to get some confirmation from the outer reality, especially if you've been using your authority by yourself. I do want to invite you to use your inner authority a lot. I use my inner authority multiple times a day. I have various things to respond to all the time when I'm considering even what to do in a day, right? When I have a list of things to do, right? Like, what do I have priority for? I'll go through and I'll feel, what do I have energy for? It'll be like, mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-hmm. Oh, I have energy for this today. Okay, I'm going to do that. And then, oh, yeah. Okay. So then I pull those two things out that I have energy for. It's not that the other things I don't need to do them, because I do need to do them, but maybe I don't have energy for them today. Maybe I even had energy for them yesterday, but I don't have energy for them today. And as I have followed this more and more in my life, it's become extremely clear, because I can feel the flow of life. For me, this is the way that the flow of life is helping to guide you from the inside. And this is true for everyone's authority, not just for generators. But this is how the flow of life is helping to direct you, so that, the truth is we're not these individual beings in our individual bodysuits, right? We're actually part of a much larger web. and we're in the world with other people. We're in the world with our, our plants and our animals, and we live in an energetic quantum universe. And so as we're becoming more aware of that, we want to tap into the larger flow of life that is going to support us, to lead us where we need to go. And as I've done that, I have found that it has directed me in different directions, um, from things that I thought, from all things I needed to work on, but really sent me from one thing to another in timing that if I were making it up in my head, I probably wouldn't have done. But that combination of strategy, of responding, but also the feeling into the way that that larger flow of life is directing me, and checking it out with my inner authority, that has made my life so much easier. And I can really be enormously productive because I am a generator. So I'm a very, very busy generator. I also have the 34, so I have the busy gate. But I don't get tired, and I'm not fried, and I'm not overwhelmed, which is pretty amazing when I consider all the different things that I have on my plate. So for all of us, whatever your authority is, learning to tap into that larger flow of life, and all of the authorities will do that, and all of your strategies will do that, has enormous, enormous benefits for you. So then there's ego or will authority. This is usually manifestors. Yeah, no, it's only going to be manifestors because that's a motor of the throat and it's not sacral. If you were a manifesting generator and you had another motor going to the throat, then just think about this for a second. No, you don't have to have another. No, you just, if you're a manifesting generator, you're going to have your sacral defined, and if you also had this configuration, you would have both. But the thing is the sacral pretty much always overrides other authorities, but you still could be getting some information from that will authority. But the sacral is easier to work with, so I would definitely encourage you to work with your sacral if you're a manifesting generator, even if you have this. This configuration gives a lot of power to a manifestor, and the thing that the manifestor needs to remember is that this is known as the ego center, the will center, and the shadow side of that can lead to narcissism and egomania. And so you want to be clear that this is also part of the heart, and it's connected to courage and to value. And so you want to be using this energy in its highest possible frequency in order to not fall down into being driven by some, potentially narcissistic patterning that you can potentially fall into. Okay. But so with this authority, you're going to be tapping into the sense of the will and the heart that is coming up into the throat. And a lot of times it comes as a kind of creative impulse. It's almost like manifestors have told me, it's almost like a go do this that kind of energy, right? Because it's coming up, it's going, right? It's like go do this energy. And the one thing that I just always say, and I said it last time with manifestors, is you want to pay attention to what's happening in your impact field and not steamroll people. Okay, people who are close to you. Here's the spleen. Splenic authority is often, I actually have splenic authority comes up on mine because I do have my spleen defined. But I don't consider the spleen my authority. I consider the sacral my authority. I do think that the sacral pretty much trumps any of the other ones. But so, for example, I know someone who is a manifestor whose motor of the throat is the root that goes through the spleen up into the throat, and he's highly attuned to his intuition. And so that's a really kind of intuitive knowingness, and it can be very fast. But the thing that I always like to say is, spleen is also the center of instinct, and it can be instinctual fear, and it can flavor your intuition here. So if you do have splenic authority, or if you do have the spleen defined, this is one of the places where if you have fear that's arising from what's happening in the world, whether that has to do with the pandemic or it has to do with the uprisings and the, the I hope really massive changes that are happening in our world, um, that that you want to check to see if fear is getting activated for you, because genuine connection with source is never going to drive you from fear, unless you are someone who is actually physically in danger. And as we've been seeing, unfortunately, there are a lot of Black Americans who are actually in danger and have been in danger, and so I don't want to discount that. And I'm sure that this is true for other people of color, and probably for some low income white people, and for some women, white women, in different situations. Okay, so I don't want to say that there's no situations where there's danger, actual physical danger, but you just want to check it and make sure that that's happening, and that you're not otherwise running out of some programmed fear that you may have. It might be in your epigenetics, you may have it from your ancestors, it could be from other lives. There's other places that it can come from. You really just want to be able to make sure you tune into what is true for me right now, in this moment, in my space, in the present, and then be able to move from there. And then you'll know that your intuition is clear, and you're not being being activated by, like I said, either childhood stuff or ancestral stuff. Okay. So let's talk about emotional authority, because people get very confused about this in my mind. And it's no surprise, because when you get your chart, it might just say uh, emotional authority. And then you think, oh, I'm supposed to make decisions emotionally. It's actually just the opposite. Okay, so let's dig into this for a moment. So if you are emotionally defined, then that means that you're going to have an emotional wave. Okay. And when you have an emotional wave, it means sometimes you're going to feel a little more up, a little more buoyant, a little more expanded, maybe a little more extroverted, a little more positive. And then when you're down on your wave, you're going to feel a little more internal, maybe a little more introverted, maybe a little more melancholic. Okay. And that's just a natural part of who you are. It's just going through those emotional waves. Okay. It's not something that you can medicate away. It's not something you can breathe away. It's not something you can, ascend. Sometimes when I tell people this, they're like, well, how do I get rid of that? How do I like process that away? I'm like, you can't. I mean, it's actually a beautiful part of who you are as a human being, is your emotional wave. And you can impact or influence the amplitude, okay, right, which is how strong it is, and particularly the lower end of the wave. So if you really embrace yourself and love yourself and give yourself what you need when you're on the lower end of your wave, maybe you do feel more inward, maybe you are more tired, maybe you don't want to spend time with friends. Give yourself the gift of taking a walk in nature, taking a bath, taking a nap, reading some poetry, reading a novel, talking to a really close friend who you totally trust, cuddling up with your dog, whatever it is. It's just giving yourself some really sweet, loving care. And also remember that much great art has been created out of melancholy. So you can also make art. Like there's beautiful paintings, there's poetry, there's songs, there's dances, all kinds of amazing things have been created out of melancholy. So you might want to go ahead and do some art for yourself and express that part of you. That's kind of the part, like when you think of music, it's like the minor keys, right? It's just this it's a quality of ness, right? And so don't try to get rid of it. Just nurture yourself when you're experiencing it, and you might find some beautiful, beautiful gems that come out of it. Now, having said that, having said that, what you do want to do is, in relation to decision making, is you want to, if you're, like, say you're a generator, and so you're going to ask your sacral yes, no questions. And you want to do that over a period of time through when you've been more up on your wave and when you've been more down on your wave. And what you're looking for is a consistent yes all the way through. If you get no's, then it's obviously a no. If you get a no and a yes, yes, no, then that's still a no, because it means it's you have, you don't have enough information, it's inconsistent, the timing isn't right. It doesn't mean no never. It just means no, not now. Okay. And that's true for most of what we're talking about today anyway. No doesn't always mean no. It could just mean no, not now. That's one of the parts of the art of asking questions for people with sacral authority. So those of you who are emotionally defined, then this is the same if you're a projector. And reflectors kind of have, they're not going to have emotional authority. They're going to have built into their system taking account over time, because that's what their authority is like. But I would say, whatever your type is, if you have emotional authority, you want to give yourself this gift of time. And the best thing you can do is track your wave over anywhere from a week to a month period, just on your calendar. Just put a 1 to 10, like how you're feeling emotionally. 10 maybe being the most elated and outward, and 1 being the most inward and withdrawn. And you'll see if you can track your wave, right? Because you'll want to go through your wave, and you may need to go through more than one wave if you're not quite feeling like you're settling on, okay, I'm solid in my response. Because that's one of the things that can happen with people who have emotional authority is that it takes them a while to get really clear, because you don't want your emotions to be the thing that's riding you. Because if you have emotional authority and you make snap decisions, you might say yes to something when you're feeling really great, and then go, what? Why did I do that? Or or if you're feeling melancholic and you're like, no, then later on you go, why did I say no? I really want to do that. Right? Okay. So projectors pretty much have either self-projected authority, which is where the heart is, the G center is going to the throat, or mental authority, where the ajna is going to the throat. The thing I would say about both of these is that it is projected. And whenever you have projected energy in a chart, basically what that means is it needs to be drawn out of you. Okay. You need to be called out. Maybe that's a better way to say it. We know that the strategy for projectors is to be invited. Okay. So if you think about why would projectors need to be invited? Well, it's because they have projected authority and they need to be drawn out. Okay. They need to be asked. And so if you have mental projected authority, a lot of that information is going to come through that ajna. And then if you have it as self-projected authority, it's going to come more through the heart. And all of that's going to be influenced by which of these channels is connecting. Okay. And I have clients that have both of these, one who has this and one who has the other. Which of these channels is going to influence to some degree the kind of the flavor, if you will, of how your authority is going to operate. But the way I really like to think about this with projectors, and projectors, I mentioned this last week, but are more defined by what they're not, but than what they are. Okay, so they don't have a motor to the throat, and they don't have a sacral, and then anything else can happen. So some projectors have splenic authority because they've got the spleen going. They've got the spleen defined. Okay, so let me just think for a second. You could have a projector with ego authority also, if just the will was defined, but it wasn't connected to the throat. Yeah, projectors could have that also. Generally, it's manifestors, but there's so many. So there are so many different permutations here, as you can see. But anyway, let me finish this up because I want to make sure we have time for interaction. The projectors are designed to be wise. You've probably heard that. And many projectors have a lot of openness, not all of them. Some can be quite defined. but some are quite open, as these two examples are here. And they have a lot of wisdom that they have accumulated over their life experience through their openness, just like all of us who have a lot of openness do. And so when we are, um, we want to call them forth in order to help them think through what's right for them. So the way to work with this authority is for the projector to talk to a high quality listener. This is a person who will is interested in what they have to say, will reflect back to them things that they hear, will ask for clarifications if something's unclear to them, will ask for more information, will say, tell me more about that. That's really interesting. Tell me more about that. And we'll draw out the wisdom from the projector. But the listener doesn't ask, doesn't give advice, okay, unless the projector asks for it. That's not the role of the listener. The role of the listener is to draw the projector out, because the projector can solve their own or answer their own question um, through talking it through. Okay, through talking it through. And so that's how you can really, those of you who love projectors can really support them. I have friends and clients who are projectors, and often what I do is play the role of the quality of listener for them, just to help bring their own insights out of them. And also projectors, if you don't have someone like this in your life, you can teach people, but they do need to be taught sometimes, because most of us have not been taught to be high quality listeners. We really haven't. um, we've been taught to interrupt and give advice and tell people what to do and all of that. So you need people in your life who aren't going to do that. A lot of times when I'm in the process of supporting a projector that way, I'll get to a point where I'll say, I think you may have answered your question. What do you think? and then we'll go there. Okay, so for reflectors tune in for a moon cycle. And this is because reflectors are very receptive. They do have definition, but they don't have any definition in their centers. They have definition in their gates. So they don't have any channels defined, and they don't have any centers defined. But they have plenty of definition in their gates. And where their definition in their gates is going to influence partly how they're tuning in to the community and tuning into the wisdom that they're going to be receiving. I have known reflectors who have felt very tuned into the moon herself, into that moon energy, and have kind of tapped into that over the course of a moon cycle. And I've known other reflectors who are like, no, I don't really get that, but I do know that I need to have time to really feel into what's right for me. And I don't like to be rushed. I've learned not to allow myself to be rushed into making decisions, which is also going to be true for any of you that are emotionally defined. Don't allow yourself to be rushed into decisions. And being able to, so for the reflector, it's important for them not to be too impacted by the people around them all the time, to get space. That's important for their health anyway, but also especially if they want to make an important decision, because they can be very influenced by the energy of the people around them. Okay. So that is our slides for today. Let's all take a stretch and a big breath. All right. I'm going to get a little more. Do I have more water? I don't have more water. Okay. I'll get a little more in here. Okay. All right. I would like to hear from you about your questions, what you want to talk about, clarifications, things that have confused you about your authority, or you want to know if you have some questions that you want to answer for yourself, clarifications, what's on your mind? All right, everybody, this is your time. And also, oh, here's a question. Also, one of the things I really appreciate for all of you is, if you're not feeling like you have a question right now, is to just comment out, what a value have you gotten so far in our conversation today, in what I presented. Like, I really want to know, what have you gotten that was of value? Was there something, did you have any ahas? Was there some clarification that you received? Because that is super helpful for me. So I would really invite you to do that if you're there on Facebook Live, or whether you're here on Zoom. Melissa, go ahead and put your question in the chat over, or not the chat, comments in Facebook, and I will be right there. Just going to take a look at this one here. Okay, this is from Marshka. She says, my question is about my strategy called No Authority in Traditional Human Design. As a mental projector with only head, ajna, and throat defined center, I was also told by Chetan Parkin that I needed to follow the 28-day moon cycle in my decision-making process. My present dilemma is how to make important decisions with no trusted friends around to talk to. It's so challenging then to not listen to my head. Once I get my knowing, that's it. I suddenly just know. However, this can take any amount of time, and there is no way for me to know when I get my knowing. I do practice tapping into the larger flow of life, like noticing signs and synchronicities, tuning into animals and nature, and even chatting with my trusted teddy bear team. My other question is, where does this knowing that I get come from? My only channels are, oh, you get it from the 4323. Yeah, it's in the knowing circuit. That's where you get it, is the 4323. And the 6447. Yep, it's from the 4323. Well, so let's talk about that for a second. Melissa, go ahead and put your question into the comments over there. Well, so here's the thing. Who am I to go against Chetan? He's one of our kind of our, grandmasters of human design, if you will. But I was not taught that. Karen didn't teach us that. And so, the thing is you've got 3 out of 4 centers defined. I mean, 3 out of 9 centers defined. So, I mean, I only have 4 centers of 9 defined. I have 5 that are open. So, but I do have a sacral. But I would say that it's curious to me that he said to follow the 28-day moon cycle. I actually don't know why he did that, except that it may be because you're receiving information and you want to give yourself time to do that. And so that's kind of a thing that we may get inside of human design, is that 28-day moon cycle. It might be that, but I think that I don't know why you wouldn't have any trusted friends around. I mean, you actually, if there's anybody here, because there's a bunch of projectors who are on today, and if there's any projectors who would like to be able to partner with Marshka to be able to ask each other, be high quality listeners for each other, maybe that's something that you could do through the Facebook group, is to actually connect with each other and meet each other on Zoom or on Skype or Facebook Live, or FaceTime or something like that. Because that it would be helpful probably for other projectors as well, is to have that kind of high quality listener. But Marshka, yeah, you've got the 4323, so that's coming right down through the center here. I've got the 43, but not the 23. I've got the 61, and so that's the beginning of the knowing circuit. Okay, so yeah, you're going to be getting knowing that's going to come in there, and I'm just thinking about what you're saying. You do practice tapping into the larger flow of life. I guess one of the things I might say is, do you ask for your knowing? Do you ask whoever in your upstairs team, wherever you think your knowing comes from? Okay, because we all have different kinds of spiritual traditions or ways of understanding what we think, uh, where we think that information might come from. But what you might want to do is just ask wherever you think, if it's the larger flow of life, or like I said, I have a solar angel that I communicate with, like, where do you think it's coming from? And ask that part to give you knowing. That might help. Let me know if that's helpful, Marshka. Okay. Um, Paige just has a comment. A muscle test, yes, no questions, and check in with my strategy to verify if I feel unclear. Cool. Paige, what's your type and authority? You didn't say here, so yeah, it'd be good to know what that is. Okay. All right, I'm going to go over here to Facebook Live. Melissa has a question. I'm a 2-4 generator, and when it comes to yes, no questions, I have a hard time. For example, do you like chocolate? Always wanting to clarify. Well, yes, I like dark chocolate, but not milk or white. Silly example, but I'm defined everywhere except spleen and emotional solar plexus. I have the channels 43, 23, 25, 51, and the 64, 47. Okay, well, you know what? This is an interesting, Melissa, this is a comment. Let me make a comment here because this has to do with the art of asking questions, like I said, for the generators. Okay. So you said, do you like chocolate? Mm-hmm. And do you like dark chocolate? Mm-hmm. Do you like white chocolate? Mm-hmm. Do you like milk chocolate? Mm-hmm. So this is where you take a general question and then you slice it, right? Or you take, a question and you slice it into its pieces. So let's say I had so I'm considering my child and I have a doctor who lives in another state, in Washington State. We live in Northern California, and we usually go to see her every 3 months. And we had to do a distance thing with her in April, and it was not anywhere near as good as seeing her in person. So my question would be, do I want us to see Dr. Katie? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And do we want to travel to Seattle to see Dr. Katie? Is now the right time to make a decision about going to see Dr. Katie? Should I wait to make that decision? If I make the decision to not go see her, excuse me, would that be problematic? It would really be better to wait to make a decision. So that's a way of me, excuse me. Sometimes when I talk for a long time, my throat gets really dry. Or how I started to slice that question into different pieces. And so chocolate is like that too. So if you're thinking about, I want to do this project. Is this a good project for me to do? Is now the right time? Will it be good to do it at another time? By the end of 2020? Maybe. Maybe not. See what I mean? You go in and you slice it different ways. Hopefully that's helpful. All right. Mary says, do you ever look at that list in the AM and feel zero energy around any of it? Yeah. I don't very much because I'm super on purpose these days, but I have felt that way. So where do you go to refill it, the energy? Is this the time to create, sing, dance, etc.? If you just feel generally overwhelmed, especially with the world, how do you know you aren't depressed? Isn't it all a bit depressing? Thanks. So there's a bunch of things there. Okay. Yeah, if you don't feel, you look at your to-do list and you don't have energy around any of it, then you need to go do something else. Chances are you need to rejuvenate yourself in some way. And yes, I would, if those things that you mentioned rejuvenate you, I would do that. You might just need a nap. Okay. You might need to like soak in a tub for a day. You might need to just read a novel. Don't watch TV. It's not the best. That's not really rejuvenating television. It's pseudo rejuvenation. um, but yeah, it's often that you might need to go for a really long walk and sit in nature for a while, lie on the earth. You might need to work out really hard because your energy is just flat and you need to get all your energy moving. So what I would do is just, either experiment with it or, well, and you're a projector, Mary. So you might want to have a conversation with someone about what that's about and have somebody draw it out of you. Ask you questions, ask you high quality questions. And I'm actually not depressed at all, personally. Um, I'm really, I feel extremely hopeful in a way that I haven't for a long time because a lot of things that we're seeing now have been going on for, ever. They're not new. It's just that it's coming into the mainstream and more white people are finding out about it. But I've known about this for many years, so it's not like new to me. What excites me is that so many more people are waking up and seeing that this is important and that we need to pay attention. And there's some changes that are being made, and we have the opportunity to change our leadership in the next few months, and that's exciting to me. So, yeah, is it depressing that there's so much brutality in the world? Absolutely. But I'm like, are you depressed or are you angry and you're suppressing your anger and then you get depressed? Or are you having other feelings? Like, are you having your own trauma being activated, which then makes you depressed because you don't know haven't worked with it? Okay, that's a whole nother class. Okay. Megumi says, I'm a projector, self-projected authority. Can I write or text to friends instead of talk? Or a writing journal or blog? I'm not comfortable to call or see friends, mostly because I hesitate their situation. Okay, I'm not completely sure I know what the last comment is. You can certainly try writing or texting people. I think that you kind of need to play around with it and see how it works. Just remember, experiment. Experiment, see what works for you. I did have a woman in my Activate Your Superpowers human design class who's a projector, who is a doctor, a highly logical mind, but she learned over the years to write in her journal, and she feels like she gets really good responses and works through things really well in her journal. I said, great, keep doing that. But, you know, try training your husband, because she said, my husband doesn't know how to do that. I said, well, you might need to teach him. But but Megumi, I don't know when you say I mostly hesitate their situation. So yeah, I don't think I can help you with that. Okay, there's Melissa's question. Okay, wow, great advice. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Okay, awesome. I think that's what we've got over there. We've got some more questions here. Let's see. Okay, Mary asked before. Okay. Can you discuss intuition within this and how we peel the layers away so that we can know we are not making decisions from fear, etc.? Well, I did address that a little bit already, Mary. So why don't you let me know if did I answer it sufficiently, Mary, or do you want me to talk about it more? I see you just said I know. More, please. Okay. Can you give me any input about more in what way? I mean, I'll say a couple things, but You tell me if you can. So here's the thing. In my experience and from my belief system, spirit will never speak to you in fear. Genuine intuition will never speak to you in harsh tones. It will never belittle you. It will never belittle another person. It may advise caution in considering something, but usually it's not even caution. It's just like, no, it's not the right energy for you. Or no, it's not the right direction. It's not, it doesn't usually have a, because, you know, spirit doesn't have the kind of um, fear that we do. And it doesn't relate to that. And it's never going to try to generate it. It doesn't even know how, honestly. So if you are feeling fear, you can know it's coming from some part of your personality. Generally speaking, unless, as I said earlier, you really do have something dangerous right here. You know, I mean, in which case, you know, if you're somebody who experiences domestic violence, right, your intuition might, you know, be like, get out of the house, right? You might feel a really strong impulse, but it's not necessarily going to do it with fear. It can still be a strong impulse. Like I've had really strong impulses from intuition before about things I needed to do or to not do, but it wasn't fear. It was more like a push. Honestly, it was more like a push, but it wasn't fear. So let me know if that answers your question. There's a few other comments I want to go into here. Sherry says, I'm a splenic projector. I've heard in the moment intuition. What is the difference between the moment and not in the moment? It seems straightforward, but I just like to make sure. Would you please give examples? Well, okay, Sherry, if you're talking about human design, my guess is, so when I first came to human design, I was told that I have instant knowing in the now. And maybe that's what you meant, instant knowing in the now, because I am a pure generator and I'm not emotionally defined. But as it turns out, I have a lot of individual circuitry. And when we have a lot of the integration circuit, it acts almost like emotional circuitry. I mean, emotional definition. So I've learned over time that it's better for me to give myself some time. I can feel into something. I can make an instant decision about some things, but I also have learned that I feel better if I give myself some time. And that can be an hour, it can be a couple of days, it can be a couple of months. I mean, it just depends on what it is and how big it is and all of that. So I think that in the world of human design, what I think, and you're a splenic projector, so I'm not really sure how that relates to splenic projectors, the in the moment knowing versus the not in the moment knowing. I mean, the truth is I really feel that it's important for everybody to give themselves time to make decisions. I think it's just too easy to make mistakes with snap decisions. We get pressured into making snap decisions too much in our culture, and it's actually not good for us. So, Sherry, tell me if I got that right. I don't know that I answered your question. Okay, Lee says, my husband is a projector with heart authority. Your explanation really helped me understand him. I'm a very good listener, but sometimes I interject with my thoughts and ideas for his decisions that now I should let him come to his own understanding of how he should or could move forward. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He'll figure it out. You know, it's just because like the talking it through is kind of like the personality and the spirit talking together, like working it, that's how I see it. Like the spirit's coming in and giving information, and the personality is talking and hearing it. That's how I think of it. I've been together 32 years, so I have witnessed that happening, as well as every major opportunity job he has had landed because people had seen his talents and skills. That's great. Okay, Winifred says that was great. Thanks for the clarity. Sandra says, yes, helpful. Lee says, I agree with you, Maggie. I feel the same way. More hopeful that change in all aspects of society is beginning to happen. Winifred says, experiment and don't be your own critic. Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. Let me see what's over here. Marja says, I have many online friends, but nobody here for a chat over a cup of coffee. Well, okay, but you can have a chat online. I mean, and the thing is so many of us haven't been able to chat over a cup of coffee with anybody for a really long time. I mean, I started to do that now, but not a lot of people, and not a lot. And yes, there's always a replay, always inside of the Sovereignty by Design Facebook group. If you're not on Facebook for some reason, that's another. I mean, I will be over time putting them up on YouTube under the Ostara Experience channel, so you can look for them there. But I don't always get them up there right away. Paige says, my projector husband sometimes finds it challenging to put his thoughts into words. I'm a generator. Well, are you asking how to help him or how to support him, Paige? I'm thinking maybe that's what. If you ask him really good questions and you're patient and receptive, it can help. And sometimes when you're a generator, it's hard because you want to just get on with it. Sherry says, retyping my question here. I'm explaining projector. I've heard in the moment into, okay, right. Oh, okay. That was the same one I talked about. I think I answered your question, Sherry, to the best of my ability anyway, because it's not actually not a type of authority that I mean, Karen at one point, she with her advanced students in level 4, she just said, people are out there just producing all these different kinds of authority. she's like, no, these types of authority that I'm telling you are the only types of authority. You guys don't even listen to all the other ones. They don't matter. So that's what she said. All right, we're winding down here. Megumi says, thanks for your advice. I intended to say I don't feel comfortable to disturb or waste people's time, but this is my theme in my life. So we'll try my best. Absolutely, Megumi. So here's the thing. Your friends want to talk to you, and you can always offer to, do the same for them, even if they're not a projector. Everybody likes to talk and everybody likes to be listened to. Everybody, pretty much. So yeah. Ask and receive. All right, and I think we're winding down here. Okay. Winifred says, congrats, would love to see your YouTube channel. Yeah, I'm starting to build it. Yeah, please go. If you go, give it a like, leave a comment. That's really helpful. Sherry says, okay, that helps. And yes, it is recorded in the Facebook group. Okay, that's where you need to go. All right, everybody, many blessings, much love. So next week, let me know. Facebook group is called Sovereignty by Design. Sovereignty by Design. All right, so I will, let me know if you want to do some one-on-one coaching next week. Shoot me an email address or direct message me on Facebook. Bye for now.